Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Guru Shri RadheGovind Bhagwad Gita.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Happy Diwali, happy Govardhan Puja.
Happy Diwali, happy Govardhan Puja.
Does everybody know about the program in the temple on Sunday?
Yeah.
It's at 4 o'clock. That's when the circumambulation of the hill, and also be a class. I think it's going to be to go prasadam.
To go prasadam.
But darshan and seeing the hill and getting to chant kirtan. Text 28.
Okay. We'll start?
Yes.
Ayudanamaham vrajam Dhenu namasmi kamdhuka Rajan Shashmi Kandarpa hai Sarpa namashmi Vasuki hai. So of weapons I am the thunderbolt, among cows I am the Surbhi, of causes of procreation I am Kandarp, the god of love, and of serpents I am Vasuki.
One moment, we've got a problem here. Okay, we're back. There's some kind of echo. Okay. The thunderbolt indeed, a mighty weapon, represents Krishna's power. In Krishna Loka, in the spiritual sky, there are cows which can be milked at any time, and they give as much milk as one likes. Of course, such cows do not exist in this material world, but there is mention of them in Krishna Loka. The Lord keeps many such cows, which are called Surabhi. It is stated that the Lord is engaged in herding the Surabhi cows. Kandarpa is the sex desire for presenting good sons. Therefore, Kandarpa is the representative of Krishna. Sometimes sex is engaged in only for sense gratification. Such sex does not represent Krishna, but sex for the generation of good children is called Kandarpa and represents Krishna. Okay. Chintamani Surabhir Palayantam Jayantarantam. Surabhi cows are mentioned in many places. And there are cows that don't exist here because they give anything. They can even give more than milk. Sometimes they're called Kamadenu because they're able to provide anything one desires. And of course, this is a feature of the spiritual world when one is serving Krishna. Because the cows are giving just to serve Krishna, and everybody else is just there to serve Krishna. You know, you're not going to try to make a business with your Surabhi cow. Any comments or thoughts about this purport? Anything strike you as interesting or
Vasuki was the serpent that descended to take Vasudeva
He's also Vasuki's had many uses, including he was a churning rod. He was used to churn the ocean of milk with the demons and with the devas and the asuras. He's mentioned many times as this divine serpent. I guess he would be on the level of a demigod. He's not spiritual. He's a jiva soul in this material world. But because he's great, this is the point in these verses, that these things are features meant to help us understand how great Krishna is. Just like when a big temple is built or a big church, they're built in such a way that they give a sense of awe because they represent God. I guess we can go on.
Anantashashmi Naganam Varuno Yadusamham Ikranamaya Machashmi Yamah Sanyam Mataham. So of the many hooded Nagas, I am Anant. And among the aquatics, I am the demigod Varun. Of departed ancestors, I am Aryama. And among the dispensers of law, I am Yam, the Lord of Death. Mataji?
Among the many hooded Naga serpents, Ananta is the greatest, as is the demigod Varuna among the aquatics. They both represent Krishna. There's also a planet of Pitta's ancestors, presided over by Aryama, who represents Krishna. There are many living entities who give punishment to the miscreants, and among them, Yama is the chief. Yama is situated in a planet near this earthly planet. After death, those who are very sinful are taken there, and Yama arranges different kinds of punishments for them.
Ananta is spiritual.
Okay. We have Sonali Birla says that their connection has dropped and they're trying to reconnect.
Mine dropped briefly too.
Oh, okay.
Hare
All right,
Krishna,
Rina.
Hare Krishna, Rina.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, we had a little trouble ourselves at one point with some sound. Are you still there, Gajendra?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
We were talking about Vasuki in the last verse. Well,
Mhm.
Vasuki is a jiva soul. He's like, you could become Vasuki or something like Vasuki in the material world, but Ananta. We're talking about, that's Ananta Shesh, and he's an incarnation of Sankarshan, who's an incarnation of Lord Balaram. So Ananta Shesh, Ananta is he's actually Vishnu Tattva. He is on the spiritual platform, not to be confused with Varuna, who's not on the spirit. He's a demigod. You know, when Prabhupada uses the word demigod for the devas, he's trying to make a point to saying that although they're very powerful and they control a lot of things like the ocean or the planets, they're jiva souls, and they're conditioned like we are, and not as conditioned as we are, differently conditioned, because they're gods, demigods, but they're not liberated. And they have to go through birth, death, old age, and disease, although their lives are very, very long and their diseases aren't so bad. And then we have Yama, sometimes called Yamaraj, and he's got a very famous sister. Who knows who Yamaraj's sister is?
Yamuna Devi.
Yeah, the Yamas, the Yamuna and Yama. With who? So Yamaraj has a very important function. That Yamaraj is engaging in the judging of sinners, and in a lot of ways may appear to be like the conception of God in some religions. Somebody who sits on a throne, who spends his time thumbs up or thumbs down. Do you go have good karma or bad karma? There's lots of stories about Yamaraj. Probably the most famous story about Yamaraj is the story about Ajamil. And Ajamil was a Brahmin. He was very advanced in behavior. He had good qualities, but for one reason or another, he came in contact with a low-class woman and took up a life of degradation, sinned, acted in ways which were very abominable. And at the end of his life, he was being dragged, he was dying. And as he was dying, the Yamaraj sent his messengers called the Yamadutas to drag him to hell. And he had a son named Narayan, a little boy who was his youngest child, and he was very attached to this boy. So as he was dying, he's calling out Narayan, Narayan, and because he's calling out the Lord's name without any motive, he's not doing it was what we call offenseless chanting. So because he's calling out this way Narayan's name, immediately Narayan sends his messengers called the Vishnu Dutas, and they block the Yama Dutas. It's a long story, but it's in the Bhagavatam. Basically, the Yama Dutas go back to Yamaraj and say, "What's going on here? We don't understand." And Yamaraj has to teach them that because Ajamil chanted the holy name, all his sins were forgiven. And there's other stories about Yamaraj. There's lots and lots of stories. He's a very important character in the literatures. Any other questions? Let's see. There's a planet called the Pitas, the Pitriloka, and many people, and Aryama, we looked up the name. It's another name for the sun god, but here it seems to be that in this context is that he has some kind of a jurisdiction over this planet of the forefathers, and basically the Pitriloka is a place where it's for those souls who have not lived piously, and they have some sinful reactions that may come, but as long as their descendants offer pinda or sacrifice once a year to the demigods, I guess in this case probably Aryama, they're kept from falling farther into the hellish region. So this is another planet of the forefathers of Pittas, Pitriloka. So we're getting a whole kind of cosmological tour here of the universe via these verses. Any thoughts or questions? They haven't discovered Yamaloka apparently, because here it says it's a planet near the earthly planet. So maybe it's one of these planets that's just kind of semi-invisible or something. It would be interesting to see exactly how where it's placed. It probably doesn't say there.
So here the 6 lokas above Earth,
Yeah.
right?
Well, yeah. Well, there are 14 worlds, and there are the Earth is like at the bottom level of the top half. There are the hellish planets, 6 hellish regions below us. We're the 7th, and then there's 7 regions above us. So we're kind of right in the middle, which is where human life is. It's right in the middle. We have choices to act like demons or devotees. Below us, it's really hard to be a devotee. And above us, it's hard to be a devotee. For different reasons. Below us, it's hard to be a devotee because it's very sinful places. And above us, it's hard to be devotees because, pure devotees, everybody above us in the universe, they're devotees, but they're not pure devotees. They're like Indra or Chandra. They're very, very much aware that who God is, Krishna, Vishnu, but they're really not interested in going back to Godhead. They really want to play around with their powers here in the material world. Enjoy. It's a pretty good deal. They live for so long, it's practically speaking, they forget about death, but death does come. So best place to be a devotee is right here.
Hare Krishna.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, because the reason why this is the best place to be a devotee is because here things aren't so bad that we're suffering so much that we can't possibly function as a devotee, and they're not so good, as we said before, that we forget to serve Krishna. And here also, we're at a platform where we're generating karma. The demigods, they just are working off good karma. That's basically what they're doing. They've got really great karma. They go there and they just work off this great karma. They don't, and they have only one direction they're going to go. They're going to fall eventually. And if we are sinful and become an animal, animals don't get karma either, but they can also do to understand God.
It is explained in the scriptures that the demigods are lining up to be able to come to the earth planet, because in the earth planet there is the opportunity to actually become serious about understanding our predicament and looking for a solution. They are enjoying so much in the heavenly planets, they don't have the opportunity to, or the desire to inquire about the difficulties, because they don't go through difficulties. Just burn out their karma, then come back to, but they're in line waiting to take birth in the material world.
In the earth
planet,
earth
the earth
planet.
planet, yeah.
It's all the material world.
Yeah, the earth planet.
Okay. Text 30.
प्रह्लादक्षास्मि दैत्यानां कालः कल्यतामहम् मृगाणां च मृगेन्द्रोऽहम् वेनते यक्षपक्षिणाम्. Among the Daitya demons, I am the devoted Prahlad. Among subduers, I am Time. Among beasts, I am the lion. And among birds, I am Garuda. What?
Diti and Aditi are two sisters. The sons of Aditi are called Adityas, and the sons of Diti are called Daityas. All the Adityas are devotees of the Lord, and all the Daityas are atheistic. Although Prahlad was born in the family of the Daityas, he was a great devotee from his childhood. Because of his devotion service and godly nature, he is considered to be a representative of Krishna.
Vijay? Vijay, you're on mute.
There are many subduing principles, but time wears down all things in the material universe and so represents Krishna of the many animals. The lion is the most powerful and ferocious and of the million varieties of birds. Garuda, the bearer of the Lord Vishnu, is the greatest.
Any thoughts or questions? There's a couple important people mentioned in the first paragraph. that we have the whole universe is divided up into two groups: the asuras and the devatas, or sometimes they're called the daityas, and the adityas. And they're descendant of two women who are both married to Kardama Muni, and Aditi is called the mother of the demigods. All the demigods are from her, but Diti famously is the mother of two persons who we all know very well from the stories, and from them come a whole bunch of other demons. And who are those two persons?
Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha.
Hiranyaksha, right. So we have these two great, what they may call the Adi demons, who are born from Diti. And of course, these two persons, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, they aren't there by accident. They're actually coming on a special mission from Vaikuntha, in the sense that the Lord wanted someone to fight with in the material world, and so they were given the opportunity to take a few births as demons. But once they got there, they actually had families, and all the families, they were demons. So you have a whole line of demons. Some of the demons are good, like Prahlad. Prahlad's a good demon. I mean, in the sense that he's a demon in the demon family. He's an asura, but he's a devotee. How did that happen? How is it that Prahlad became a devotee, even though his father is a Surya Varyam? He's the king of the demons.
Because of Narad Muni, he was addressing while he was in the of his mother.
Yes, absolutely. There you go. Madhava got the $64,000 question there. So what happens is that Hiranyakashipu, he's going off to conquer the universe, and he leaves his wife behind pregnant. And the demigods, they're like, they come in upon her and they say, well, this woman's pregnant, and she's got a demon in her womb. We're going to take her, and then as soon as that demon's born, we're going to kill him. But then Narada Muni said, hold a second, you can't do that. That's really impious, and he's going to be a great devotee. So he took Kayadu, that's the mother, that's Prahlad's mother, to his ashram, and spoke Srimad Bhagavatam to her, and Prahlad heard in the womb. Unfortunately, Kayadu forgot most everything, but Prahlad didn't. So when Prahlad was a little kid, he was already chanting Hare Krishna and subverting his father's kingdom, for which he had big problems. Father tried to kill him, but eventually that led to the appearance of a most wonderful incarnation, Nrsimhadev. But these are long stories. But anyway, that this is mentioned here, that Krishna says, among the Daitya demons, I am the devoted Prahlad. So if we remember Prahlad, we can remember Krishna. And of subduers, I am time. Krishna is going to say that again in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna says, what's your mission? He says, time I am, and I have come here to destroy all persons. With the exception of you, the Pandavas, everyone in this battlefield is going to die. So guess what? Time is the great leveler of everything. Any questions, comments about Garuda, or time to go off for a Diwali festivities? Guess we should go on to 31.
Santa might deliver the...
Bhutamasmi Ramah Shabdritamaham Shashanam Makarshashmi Istrotasamasmi Janavi. Of purifiers I am the wind, of the wilders of weapons I am Ram, of fishes I am the shark, and of flowing rivers I am the Ganges.
Ganges.
Yeah, Nishant?
Of all the aquatics, the shark is one of the biggest and is certainly the most dangerous to man. Thus, the shark represents Krishna.
But Jet's Pizza delivers the goods. Sorry, big guy. We just do it better. Jet's better because.
Is it a pizza or what?
What's going on there?
Some pizza sale because Diwali night is pizza night.
You know, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who is a great Vaishnava Acharya coming after Lord Chaitanya a couple generations, he mentions that the Ram in this verse is not Lord Ramachandra, but a different Ram, Parshuram. And the reason he says that is because it says of wielders of weapons.
As it has to be.
I am wrong.
Laser show.
So we have this is Parshuram, and Parshuram is what's called a Shaktavesh avatar. In other words, that means he's a jiva soul who's empowered by Krishna to act for certain purposes, and his purposes were, well, it's a long story also, but he wasn't exactly a mellow sort of incarnation. He was very active with his weapons, killing Kshatriyas, because the Kshatriyas, to make a long story short, had offended his family, and so he killed the Kshatriyas 21 times. 21 generations, which is inconceivable, but it's what it says. And the understanding is that so many of the dynasties of civilizations were dispersed from India because some of the Kshatriyas, when they saw Parshuram, decided that they weren't going to stick around to lose, but they were going to go someplace else. So they ended up going to Turkey, Egypt, Greece, Scandinavia, and Mongolia, different places.
That is also explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam. When you read it, you'll find these stories.
Kirata, Hundara, Olinda, Polkasha.
Yeah. Different races.
So that's all coming because of Ram. And actually, there's also Parshuram. Well, there is also a story when Ramachandra meets Parshuram too, and they actually fight, and Lord Ramachandra wins that fight. So this Ram is Parshuram, at least according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Other than that, the Ganges, the shark, these are, you know, if you're out swimming and you see a shark before he takes you away, just think Hare Krishna. Text 32.
Madhyantakshamadhyam Chevaham Arjuna Adhyatma Vidya Vidyanam Vadaya Pravadatamaham. So of all creations I am the beginning and the end, and also the middle. O Arjuna, of all sciences, I am the spiritual science of the self. And among logicians, I am the conclusive truth. Madhaprabhu?
Among the created manifestations, the first is creation of the total material elements. As explained before, the cosmic manifestation is created and conducted by Mahavishnu, Garbhadakshayi Vishnu, and Kshiradakshai Vishnu. And then again it is annihilated by Lord Shiva. Brahma is the secondary creator. All these agents of creation, maintenance, and annihilation are incarnations of the material qualities of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, he is the beginning, the middle, and the end of all creation.
Inaji?
For advanced education, there are various kinds of books of knowledge, such as the four Vedas. There are 6 supplements: the Vedanta Sutra, books of logic, books of religiosity, and the Puranas. So altogether, there are 14 divisions of books of education. Of these, the book which presents Adhyatma Vidya, spiritual knowledge in particular, the Vedanta Sutra, represents Krishna.
Mukesh?
Among logicians, there are different kinds of argument. Supporting one's argument with evidence that also supports the opposing side is called jalpa. Merely trying to defeat one's opponent is called vitanda, but the actual conclusion is called vada. This conclusive truth is representation of Krishna.
And that, I think that's too complicated. We can talk just about what's in the verse, but that one verse is important.
Yeah, this one here.
Yeah, that one over there.
Which is about healing.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that's important.
We're talking about knowledge.
Yeah, that's too deep.
The spiritual science of itself and the conclusive truth.
Okay, questions or thoughts? There's a lot covered in these 3 paragraphs, and also in the actually in the verse itself. The first paragraph of the purport is kind of a review over things we've talked about a lot in the last few weeks about the different kinds of Vishnu that are manifested and how this is Prabhupada repeats this over and over again. This is a way, in one sense, to understand just how great Krishna is. Krishna is the origin of all these different Vishnu forms. He stands supreme. You know, he's there dancing with the gopis and playing with the cowherd boys and acting like a mischievous little kid with Mother Yashoda, enjoying like anything, just having a great time with his devotees in Goloka. And from him come these huge, important, powerful deities like the creator of the universe from this boy. So we have Mahavishnu, who's sometimes called Karanadakshayi Vishnu, then Garbhadakshayi Vishnu and Kshiradakshai Vishnu. And these have been explained before, that Mahavishnu, he's the one who creates everything. And then within that everything, there are trillions of universes. And in each of the universes, there's a Garbhadakshayi Vishnu who controls that universe. And then from him, there is a Kshiradakshai Vishnu who is Krishna, who is the super soul in every atom and in every heart of every living entity. So he's the all-pervading energy of the Lord. And then we have Lord Shiva, which we've explained before as this intermediary personality who is the Supreme Lord, who does the the dirty work in the material world, touching the material energy where the Supreme Lord never really touches material energy. And then Brahma, who is born out of Garbhadakshayi Vishnu from his navel. We'll get into that. And he's like the engineer. He's basically the contractor. You know, you hire a guy to build your house, and he gets all the stuff to build it, the electrical wires and the it's like you know, he's the subcontractor after the whole thing's been, you know, all the stuff's been brought over, and he builds everything. So that's his position.
And there are unlimited Brahmas. It's not just one.
In every
There's
universe.
one in this universe, but there are unlimited universes, and there are unlimited Brahmas in each one of those universes. Each one has its own Brahma.
Mm-hmm. And Shiva also manifests in each universe. And so this just shows us how Krishna is the origin of inconceivable powers. And he himself, Namam Ishvaram Satchidananda Rupam. He's just, you know, he's Mother Yashoda's darling little boy, or he's Radha's beloved boyfriend, or he's the kid who likes to, you know, to play around with the other kids while they're herding cows. I mean, he does. This is his life.
Let's talk about the science of the self.
Yeah.
Of all sciences, I am the spiritual science of the self, which means understanding who we are, then understanding who God is, and then understanding how we are related to the Supreme Being. And that is a transcendental science, spiritual science or transcendental science. And then Krishna says, I am among logicians, I am the conclusive truth, the absolute truth. So there is a verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14:3, which is spoken by Lord Brahma. And it says, Bhagavan is unconquerable by anyone within this world. Yet, if somebody faithfully hears narrations about his pastimes, even while remaining within his established social position, then the disease of lust and all impediments to spiritual advancement will vanish from his heart, and he will overpower that unconquerable Bhagavan. Such is the potency of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. So here again is 10:14:3. Okay, so we'll read this translation. I was reading a different translation. Those who, even while remaining situated in their established social positions, throw away the process of a speculative knowledge, and with their body, words, and mind offer all respects to descriptions of your personality and activities, dedicating their lives to these narrations, which are vibrated by you personally and by your pure devotees, certainly conquer your lordship. In other words, by hearing these pastimes of the Supreme Lord, as Krishna is speaking them, for example, in the Bhagavad Gita, or the pure devotees are explaining the pastimes about so many activities of the Lord and his devotees, certainly one can conquer the Supreme Lord. In other words, he can become subordinate. In other words, one can develop such love for the Supreme Lord that the Lord becomes subordinate to him. Although you are otherwise unconquerable to anyone within the three worlds. And this is something that we've been talking about also. We talked a lot before the COVID set in about the power of the holy name. And as we read the Srimad Bhagavatam, and as you read the Srimad Bhagavatam, you will see that there are two main subjects. One is the power of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord and his devotees. And the other one is the power of the holy name. So every time you read a chapter, you're going to find verses that describe one or the other or both. How important it is to hear. Because we were discussing yesterday about hearing, and how when we hear from a person who is really qualified, a person who is really advanced, and he's telling us the narrations of the Supreme Lord or his devotees, then we become more and more eager to hear, and the heart becomes more and more cleansed. And in this way, we make very fast progress along the path of devotion. We were discussing a text from chapter 11. That was Wednesday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's almost 8.
And I think it's we've covered pretty much everything. If anybody's got any questions or comments, thoughts about tonight's verses. We invite everybody to dive into the Bhagavad Gita whenever you can.
Is everybody doing okay with health and work and everything?
Maybe just a generic question and maybe answer to your question.
You moved to India.
Now you're in Mayapur.
You're in Mayapur now.
So I was wondering, like how you relate, these story to the current world, right? I mean, how you relate to the existing world, like the world where we are living today. I mean, we know stories, we have heard those stories, but how you relate those stories to our ongoing, let us say, current situations to the world, right?
Well, everything has to be seen in context. And Prabhupada would do that also. I think it's important that when we read the stories, we don't just read the stories as something that happened a long time ago or something that's just applicable to certain people who are following certain kind of Vedic ways. But we have to see how it applies to us today. So let's say, for instance, that when we read a story and it has some kind of facts in it or some descriptions that seem to be unbelievable by our own current standards, well, we shouldn't let that get in the way of understanding what the story is teaching us. And therefore, Prabhupada would always emphasize that we don't have perfect senses and we don't have a perfect understanding of what the world's really about, so that things that might seem to be fantastic or impossible shouldn't be just ruled out. Oh, that's not possible, so therefore I don't want to apply this story to the current situation. But we certainly can see the comments being made by our teachers or the examples of things in our books. They have direct relevance to the way people act today. I mean, just think about just think about the nature of Hiranyakashipu, and Prabhupada would say, "Oh, now you think that you have demons, but they're just little Hiranyakashipus compared to the giant Hiranyakashipu." But the qualities that Hiranyakashipu exhibited, they're qualities that you can actually see are being transposed into people in this world today. And those are qualities that cause ruination. And therefore, we understand that we need to be devotees for ourselves, and we need to teach other people that they don't need to be brainwashed by a world where there are a lot of Hiranyakashipus trying to influence the world by their sinful activities. But, I think one of the things we need to do if we want to understand these things is to get together and discuss and see how these things become relevant.
Yeah, they're all applicable actually, but there have to be specific instances.
One example of this is Swami Prabhupada himself, right? So when he came to US, he came and you see all the hippies around and everybody was just so materialistic. And then he imparted them this knowledge of Hare Krishna.
And he made changes. When he came to the West, he more or less invented what was called a brahmacharini, a woman who is a brahmachari. And people in India thought, oh, traditionally we don't do that. And Prabhupada said, well, that's not the same tradition here, that women have a different kind of position in society. So he took the tradition and he modified it according to time, place, and circumstance. So that's what we have to do. It's a good question, though, because sometimes people see religion or spirituality as something that that doesn't quite fit into the world, or it's something that we keep in a box in the corner of the room or something like that. But actually, it should be something that we can apply to our everyday life.
Yeah. So if I read it right, if I read it right based on the quality, then in the current world there could be Hiranyakashipu or Prahlada in the same person, depending on kind of, character they show, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
These are not theoretical situations. They're actually real situations, and we can transpose them and see how they represent what we're surrounded by and what we have within ourselves also that needs to be modified, things that we need to modify, not just externally, but also internally.
There's a story about one of Prabhupada's disciples, whose father was the president of a very large liquor company. And I mean, big, Seagram's, you know. So they were riding in a car one day and in New York, and one of the devotees, and this devotee was in the car too, said, "Oh, look, that's where this Prabhu's father works." And Prabhupada said, "Father like Hiranyakashipu, son like Prahlad."
I think not to be surprised. There's no surprise. I mean, all this is already predicted, right? And this is just part of the Kali. So
yes.
Find all these examples, but all these are already mentioned. But the other thing is how to relate to this world. I think it doesn't matter. I mean, the basic rules of the nature, the basic rules of the life and death are still the same.
Yep.
Yes.
These are different, and how
Birth, death, life, and disease haven't changed.
how the body is composed of, and the fact that there is a soul, which not everybody understands, and the fact that there is a shuttle body, the fact that there is a real body, physical body, all these facts are still the same, and we are just changing the nature and the living environment.
And also in the Western society, the idea of, not so much anymore, but for the most part, the idea of karma and the idea of going from one body to another is very foreign. It's very foreign. So it's very important that people understand these principles. Otherwise, we cannot take responsibility for what happens to us, that we have created, that we have set in motion ourselves. That they were eternal. It's not like we have a beginning and an end when the body is born and when the body leaves. So these are extremely important points that society needs to understand and become responsible, so that we can act in ways that are highest and beneficial for everybody and for ourselves too.
But more people do understand karma, and more people are vegetarians now because of groups like the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. When
karma is certainly playing a big role. Diet is certainly
the love of devotion, all that is still applies.
Yeah,
absolutely.
When I first became a devotee back in 1975, being a vegetarian was pretty rare.
Yeah, absolutely.
Prabhuji, I think we are already over time.
Yeah, I think we're over time, so we'll have to.
And I'll just run this for like maybe 3 or 4 minutes. We'll see this. That's when the pizza advertise came up, because I was trying to see if there's a live Ayodhya anywhere. It looks like there are some 5 million lamps are being lighted in Ayodhya.
Nice.
Nice.
So we'll just see. I haven't seen it, so please pardon if anything else comes. So this is a live, I'm just bringing it up. All of us can see it together.
Okay, thank you.
हुआ और
Hare Krishna
के जरिए पूरी राम कथा बांची गई। एक वर्ल्ड रिकॉर्ड कायम हुआ है अयोध्या में, रिकॉर्ड दीप प्रज्वलन का। गोविंद बल्लभ जोशी जी हमारे साथ इस वक्त मौजूद हैं। पंडित जी, एक विश्व रिकॉर्ड भी बना है आज दीप प्रज्वलन का। 5,84,000 दिए जलाने का रिकॉर्ड बना है राम की नगरी अयोध्या से।
5,84,000 अगर उनका टोटल पूर्णांक लाए तो 8 अंक बनता है। 8वां अंक है भगवती जगदम्बा का, तो वो है भगवती जगदम्बा, भगवती महाकाली, उनका बनता है, और 5,51,000 का पूर्णांक बनता है दो माने सिया राम मैं सब जग जाने करो प्रणाम जोर जुबानी, और उन दोनों का योग बना देंगे हम तो वो बनता है 10 का पूर्णांक बनता है एक का मतलब वो है परब्रह्म परमात्मा एक भगवान राम अपनी समस्त विभूति।
ऐसे ही राम की नगरी में अब सीधे आपको भी लिए चलते हैं। रणवीर हमारे संवाददाता वहां लगातार मौजूद हैं। रणवीर, इस वक्त वहां क्या कुछ आयोजन चल रहा है?
I think we should stop.
Okay.
All right, just wanted to give a glimpse of what's going on.
Social distancing doesn't seem to be so important there.
Hare Krishna to all.
Happy Krishna
And happy Diwali.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna and happy
Hare
Diwali
Krishna.
to all of
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Thank you
Hare Krishna.
again.
Thank you
Hare
for
Krishna.
everything.
Thank you, Gajendra Prabhu.
Haribo.
Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.